We need to really be focusing our efforts and being able to keep up with these criminal organizations because they stay on the cutting edge.
Hi, and welcome to GAO's Watchdog Report, your source for fact-based, nonpartisan news and information from the U.S. Government Accountability Office. I'm your host, Holly Hobbs. Criminal organizations and terrorist groups use money laundering to carry out their crimes, including human and drug trafficking. Federal agencies work together to investigate these activities and have developed several strategies to combat these crimes. But what do we know about how effective these efforts are? We'll find out more from GAO's Triana McNeil, who led work for a new report on this topic. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Triana, maybe we can start with how big of a deal is this? How big of an issue is it?
It's huge. Illicit finance is a really big deal for the U.S. financial system. The top two threats are money laundering and terrorist financing. And I'll give you a couple of statistics. So in 2023, the year for which we had the most recent available data, the U.S. seized almost $2 billion in money laundering related assets. And in the same time frame, we disrupted 562 transnational criminal organizations. The goal was 350. So that just shows we blew right through that goal. This is a huge problem.
How exactly are they doing this? How does it work? What are the mechanics of it?
So basically, they're conducting their crimes. They're then funneling that money through our financial system, and then they're using the proceeds to commit more crimes. So you might have drug traffickers. They use their proceeds to buy legitimate real estate. They then use the proceeds of real estate transactions to fund terrorism abroad. Another example, we call them bust outs. So criminal organizations will use fraudulent identities, and they'll get lines of credit. They'll use credit cards, and they'll establish great credit over a long period of time. And then they max it out. They use those proceeds to do whatever criminal activities that they want to do. And that's particularly challenging because a lot of these fraudulent identities are synthetic identities. They're not stolen. They create them. They'll get a social security number from someone. From another person, they'll use their birth date. They cobble it together, and it's just super hard to try to track down the perpetrators that use synthetic identities.
What is the federal government doing to try to combat these crimes?
So it's twofold. You've got federal agencies whose primary mission is to investigate and prosecute these criminal organizations. So you've got the FBI. They investigate criminal organizations and they investigate violations of U.S. drug laws. You've got the DEA. Their whole mission is to enforce the U.S. drug laws, but they also try to dismantle these drug cartels and other drug organizations. So you've got the individual federal agencies, but then you've got this government-wide approach. You've got a number of strategies that involve multiple agencies. They're collaborating and coordinating with the goal of combating illicit finance. So the National Drug Control Strategy, that's led by an office in the White House. It involves all of the drug control agencies. One of their huge goals is to reduce demand for drugs, but they also are trying to dismantle these financial networks that are involved in drug trafficking. And you've got another strategy that's focused on combating terrorist and other illicit finance activities. That's ran out of the Treasury Department. It involves financial regulators, federal law enforcement, as well as our intelligence agencies. And their main goal is to counter all the significant threats to our financial system. And so the government-wide, all of government approaches are really what's key to combating illicit finance.
Do we know how effective these strategies are?
Unfortunately, we do not. We've reviewed a number of these strategies. The two I mentioned are just two. There are multiple other ones. They have goals, but they don't have the performance information, which is results-oriented, outcome-oriented information that can track the progress toward the goals and the strategies. They need to start tracking performance information and not outputs. Outputs can be good, but oftentimes that's like widgets. We need to get at the effectiveness and we need to focus on the outcomes, because without knowing that type of information, it's hard to tell if we should be redirecting resources to more effective activities and efforts.
So government-wide strategies are key to combating illicit financial activities, but federal agencies aren't collecting the performance information they need to know how effective their efforts are. So Triana, what more do we think the federal government should be doing to understand the effectiveness of its efforts?
It's all about collecting performance information. The Treasury Department was one of the agencies where we made this recommendation. They disagreed, but in our conversations with them, they acknowledged they could do quarterly data calls for all the participating agencies in the strategy that they lead, and that would arm them with the type of information to chart progress toward their goals. And so with our recommendation follow-up, we're going to hold their feet to the fire. We want to see, where's this information? What activities, what oversight are you doing of your strategy? Because the government needs to understand, is this the right approach, or do we need to pivot and do something different?
And last question, what's the bottom line of this report?
I want to make 3 points. Number 1, this is a huge problem for our financial system. Number 2, it's going to require an all-of-government approach. And number 3, we have to get this performance information because there's so many different entities involved and they're trying all these different things. And we need to really be focusing our efforts and being able to keep up with these criminal organizations because they stay on the cutting edge.
That was Triana McNeil talking about our new report about efforts to combat illicit finance. Thanks for your time, Triana.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to the Watchdog Report. To hear more podcasts, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And make sure to leave a rating and review to let others know about the work we're doing. For more from the Congressional Watchdog, the U.S. Government Accountability Office, visit us at gao.gov.